Right after those American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers completed their record-breaking missions and slammed GBU-57 bunker busters into Iran's deepest nuclear sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan on June 21st and 22nd, 2025, the obvious question was, did that finally end Iran's nuclear program? Or did Iran already have a response ready? Here's what actually happened in the year that followed: the immediate retaliation, the adaptation across the conflict, and the uneasy ceasefire. The signs that the nuclear threat was reconstituting. And the dramatic 2026 escalation that included targeted leadership strikes and real questions about missing American aviators. On June 23, 2025, the day after the major U.S. bunker buster strikes, Iran launched its direct retaliation. They fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at the giant U.S. Al Udeid airbase in Qatar. Reports on the exact number vary between 6 and 19, but nearly all were intercepted. One landed harmlessly off target with 0 casualties. Iran also fired a closing round of missiles toward Israel as the ceasefire took shape. Even before and during those final days of fighting in late June 2025, Iran had already been using waves of Shahed 136 kamikaze drones, cheap weapons costing only about $20,000 to $50,000 each, depending on ordnance, alongside more advanced ballistic missiles, like the solid-fuel K-Bar-Shikan. They also brought in the Fatah series, whose maneuverable re-entry vehicle and secondary propulsion system let the ballistic missile warhead change course in the terminal phase to dodge interceptors. As the fighting continued over those 12 days, Iran kept adapting. They shifted toward these more sophisticated systems, especially in the later stages. By the final day before the ceasefire, penetration rates had climbed to around 25%. It was the classic military reality. Sustained contact with a capable enemy gives them a chance to evolve their tactics and weapons. The cost asymmetry was brutal. Each Shahed drone was inexpensive, but the THAAD and Patriot interceptors needed to stop them often cost around $4 million per shot. The human cost was stark. On the Israeli side, roughly 30 civilians and one soldier were killed, with over 3,200 injured from the strikes. In Iran, more than 1,000 people were killed, including hundreds of civilians and military personnel, and thousands more wounded. The ceasefire came around June 24th, 2025. But the strikes had not completely eliminated Iran's nuclear capability. The IAEA had reported before the war that Iran held a record stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%. After the strike, assessments showed some highly enriched uranium remained in an undamaged underground facility. Iran later refused full inspections of damaged sites. In February 2026, IAEA stated it could not verify Iran's enrichment status or stockpile because safeguards had become, quote, legally untenable, unquote. Though it found no evidence of active weaponization, these gaps in intel left open the possibility of reconstitution. By 2026, signs of rebuilding and renewed activity appeared alongside widespread internal protests, which further weakened the regime. On February 28, 2026, following the breakdown of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks, and with President Trump expressing dissatisfaction on February 27th, Israel and the United States launched a new, larger air campaign. Israeli F-35I Adirs stealth fighters again led in suppressing air defenses. American forces joined in immediately with B-2, B-1 Lancer, and B-52 bombers, striking fortified ballistic missile facilities, plus F-35 Lightning IIs, Fa-18 Super Hornets, and Tomahawk missiles from a carrier strike group, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, already on station in the Arabian Sea, and the USS Gerald R. Ford, which had arrived in the eastern Mediterranean and was positioned off Israel by late February. Israel struck approximately 500 targets with around 200 fighter jets in its largest combat sortie ever, dropping over 1,200 bombs in the first 24 hours alone. The campaign hit missile infrastructure and conducted targeted leadership strikes in Tehran. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and numerous senior officials were killed. Iran reacted within hours, codenaming its response Operation True Promise 4. It launched ballistic missiles and drove salvos towards Israel and U.S.-aligned Gulf targets, with early waves including around 170 ballistic missiles. Some penetrated, causing civilian casualties, including a direct hit in Tel Aviv on February 28th, and a strike on a synagogue and residential buildings in Beit Shemesh on March 1st, which killed 9 people. Iran also targeted U.S. bases and oil infrastructure and attempted to close the Strait of Hormuz. While most Iranian aircraft were destroyed on the ground at their bases during the opening strikes, there were a few limited attempts to get fighters airborne. In one confirmed case, Qatari F-15s shot down 2 Iranian Su-24 attack aircraft that had taken off and were headed towards the U.S. Al-Udeid base. On March 4th, an Israeli F-35I engaged and shot down an Iranian Yak-130 in air-to-air combat over Tehran, one of the few manned dogfights in the conflict. In the weeks that followed, the back and forth continued at lower but steady intensity. Iran kept up repeated but noticeably smaller scale missile and drone attacks on Israel and Gulf partners, including strikes on radar and missile defense sites in the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan in early March. These attacks damaged or destroyed expensive U.S. and allied systems, including THAAD radars, AN/TPY-2 components, valued in the hundreds of millions, and early warning radars like the AN/FPS-132 at Al-Udeid in Qatar, estimated at over $1 billion in some reports. The damage temporarily strained anti-missile tracking and interception capabilities in parts of the region. The U.S. and Israel responded with ongoing precision strikes on remaining IRGC command centers, missile production and storage sites, and additional high-value leadership targets, including the March 17th strike that killed Ali Laranjani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. While Iran still managed significant launches in the opening days, sustained U.S. and Israeli strikes on launchers and storage infrastructure reduced its ability to sustain the kind of massive, high-volume, concentrated barrages seen in 2025. Attack intensity dropped sharply after the first week in many assessments. Iran continued exerting economic pressure through intermittent threats and disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, sending Brent crude oil prices surging from around $72 per barrel to over $110 per barrel in the following weeks, a rise of more than 50%. At the pump in the United States, the national average price for regular gasoline jumped from roughly $2.98 a gallon to over $4.40 a gallon. During these operations, the risk to air crews became very real. Claims circulated of Israeli F-35I losses amid the intense air defense environment and information warfare on social media, though no manned F-35I shootdown has been confirmed in reporting. On April 3, 2026, a U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle was shot down over western Iran. Both crew members, 2 American aviators, were initially reported missing. That story and what happened next is one we will cover in detail in the next video. The 2025 bunker busters and 2026 air campaign proved the reach of modern air power, but also its limits against a resilient and adapting adversary. Iran's nuclear program suffered major damage but was not eradicated. Its missile force evolved under pressure. The human stakes, including missing aviators, remain. The timeline is still unfolding. Thanks for watching. If this explained the why and real costs, hit like and subscribe. Part 3 on the American pilots and what their story reveals will drop soon. Stay curious.